श्रीमान वेंकटनाथार्य कवितार्किक केसरी वेदांताचार्य वर्यो मे सन्निधत्तां सदा हृदि. Adiyan Dasan. Today we are going to see about Shri Hayagreeva Stothram of Swami Desikan. So Adiyan would like to have this as an interactive session. So let's discuss about the original avataram of Swami Hayagreeva Perumal. And then we will discuss about Swami Desikan, how he had the initiation of the Hayagreeva Mantram, and prior to that, how he had the Shri Garuda Mantram initiated to him, and how Swami Desikan came to Thiruvaindupuram and composed Hayagreeva Stothram and the story thereafter, and also see the Hayagreeva Stothram meanings. If you are not able to cover the full entire Stothram today, we will stop where we covered, and then we will continue in the next class for the remainder of the Stothrams. So as you might all know, let us have the initial story of the Hayagreeva Avataram. Mama, I would like to have this as an interactive session. So if you can have the students' mic activated, then we can have a quick discussion and then go from there.
Yeah, everybody's mic is active.
Okay. Adiyan. So let's talk about the Hayagreeva Avataram. Who can tell me something about Hayagreeva Avataram?
He is the Perumal of knowledge.
Very good.
He's in charge of Vedam.
Very good.
He took the outcome of a horse.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
I'm not sure. I think in Hayagreeva Stothram it says that his wife is Saroja Devi.
Okay. We'll discuss some of those points. Then what do you know about the Hayagreeva Avatar? Can one of you share what
He was the one who taught the Vedas to Brahma.
He retrieved he retrieved the Vedam from Madhu and Kaitava.
Very good, correct.
He has a horse face. He has a horse face.
Excellent.
He gave he gave knowledge and the power of knowledge to Saraswati.
Good, very good points. So prior to that, why did Swami Perumal take the Hayagreeva Avatar?
Because Brahma forgot all his Vedam because he thought that he was more powerful than Perumal, and Madhu Kaitava stole it, and Perumal forgave Brahma by taking Hayagreeva Avataram to retrieve the Vedam and give it back to him to teach him his lesson.
Okay, correct. So initially Perumal has taught the Vedas to Brahma and gave Brahma the command to engage in the creation activity, creation of all the universe and then everything within the universe, but from the initial ingredients or the basic building blocks that Perumal had created. So using that, Perumal instructed Chaturmukha Brahma to create the rest of the creation process, all this universe and everything that is in. And Brahma started to perform that task, as commanded by Perumal and using the knowledge from the Vedas. So Perumal himself taught Brahma all the Vedas and gave the Upadeshams and then also commanded him, right? Do you all are you all aware of that? Okay, I take it that you are. So next step was with the knowledge that Brahma received and the Upadesham Brahma received from Perumal, he set out to perform the creation process. But after a while, he got a little bit complacent. Complacent meaning he took it for granted. He thought, okay, I can now do all this creation work very easily, and I'm very comfortable with it, and I don't have to worry about anything. I am almost like Perumal, he thought. So, and then he started forgetting about some of the main qualities that Perumal had initiated in the Upadesham process, that he should always remember that the Vedas being the supreme knowledge, he being Brahma, should always be mindful about what he is performing and not assume and take things for granted and thereby lose the power that he has, and also not to misuse the powers, right? When with great power comes great responsibility. Therefore, one has to be very careful and cautious. But unfortunately, Brahma kind of took it for granted and thought, all right, I can perform all this at my will, and I don't need anybody's guidance or help anymore, including Perumal's. And in order for Brahma to understand that, there was a Leela, or a Perumal performed a sport. So what happened next? Who can tell that? Does anyone know about how Madhu Kaitapa came in and then took the Vedas, that part of the story?
Perumal, he came out of Perumal's nose, and he's still there.
Okay. Who else can say something more about it? Raghav, Lakshmi Narasimhan, Srimayi, Saumi, any of you?
Perumal purposefully did that to teach Brahma a lesson.
Okay, you can kind of say that. Okay, so Madhu Kaitapa originated in one story. It says from his ears or from nose, and there are the different versions of that. We don't have to worry about that. But the fact that Madhu and Kaitapa came in, and then when Brahma was little bit unaware or was not paying attention, they did the apahar, they did the stealing of all the Vedas and then disappeared, right? And then what happened?
Brahma had to suffer of his loss of Vedas.
Correct.
Hayagreeva came in, Perumal came in as Hayagreeva.
Correct. So what happened thereafter is Brahma realized his mistake first, and then he realized there is
He surrendered.
Correct. He can no longer perform the creation as instructed by Perumal. So he lost all the Vedas and with it the knowledge of it, and therefore he started to worry about what next to do, because without the knowledge of Vedas, there was nothing Brahma could do. Even though he was instructed by Perumal, because of his taking it for granted and not really respecting it, he lost it. Now, out of that panic, he also forgot what to do thereafter. Then finally, he realized his mistake, and then he went to Perumal and surrendered at his feet again and said, "Oh Perumal, I made a very serious mistake. I'm so sorry. Please help me, because without you, I am nobody. I cannot perform anything." So even though he initially thought he had the free will and the ability to do anything, he realized that that is not the case. And he requested Perumal and said, "Please help." And then what Perumal did after that? Who can tell me that part?
He took Hayagreeva Avtaram.
Very good. He took the Hayagreeva.
First he taught Brahma a lesson.
Yeah.
Right. So Brahma himself realized, but Perumal also told him, "Let this be your lesson, right? Hereafter, be
He
very
gave
careful."
Brahma a warning that if he does it again, then he loses this forever.
Right. And then he took the Hayagreeva Avtaram. What is the speciality of that? Why did he assume the form of Hayagreeva and not any other form?
Because Hayagreeva is the god of knowledge and Vedam is our knowledge. Or like the ultimate knowledge.
Yes, that is one answer. Okay, so we are going to see, as part of this session, more details on why. That is available within the Hayagreeva Stothram itself. So we will be seeing that. Now, this happened so many yugams ago, right? So one of the many avatarams Perumal did. Does anybody know how many avatarams Perumal took?
24?
Okay,
Wait.
that's one answer.
Infinity.
Say that again.
We don't know how much avatars Perumal has taken. It's
In
unmem-
generations, he's took like millions and billions. We
Yeah.
don't even know.
Multiple.
but there's only 10 main avatars.
That's
Right.
the Dashavdan, but I think there's 24 avatars and people also.
Right. It's actually 40 other avatars. So totally, all of you have said the answer correctly in many ways. So one is, we do not honestly know how many avatars Perumal has really taken. That is one answer, right? The other answer is, if you look at the basic avatars, 10 avatars as part of the Dasha avataram, that we regard as important from certain perspectives. And then there is about 40 avatars of Perumal that is considered to be in some aspect Purna Avataram. Purna Avataram means fully complete avatarams, and we regard 40 of them in that sense. So all the answers you gave are in a way correct, that as we speak now, Perumal might be taking an avataram in some form in some universe. Who knows, right? There is multiverse. There are so many universes. Science is still searching the answers for. Nobody
What about Parashurama?
Parashurama is also an avataram. Is part of the Dasha avataram. But outside of that, there are totally 40 avatarams considered as within the Purna Avataram concept. So there are many variations to that, but we regard 40 avatars. One of them happens to be Shri Hayagreeva Avataram, right? In this avataram, Perumal in Lakshmi Nrsimha Avataram, Perumal's main purpose there was to save his bhakta. One bhakta, even though he was a child, Perumal took that avataram to protect. In the same way, in this avataram, Perumal took the avataram of Sri Hayagreevan as horse-faced, Vellai Parimugar Desigar, Vellai Parimugar. So in that way, he took this avataram specifically to protect the Vedas, to save the Vedas and make sure Brahma got back the Vedas so that the creation process can continue. Otherwise, there is no option for the various jivatmas to reach back to him. Without the creation process followed by the anugrahams of Perumal, all the jivatmas will be suffering. And therefore, Perumal has to do something about it. And first step is protecting the Vedas. Without protecting the Vedas, there is basically nothing. Everything starts and ends with the knowledge, Vedic knowledge, that is. Therefore, Perumal took the avataram as a horse-faced Hayagreeva and went about capturing both Madhu and Kaitapa. And who can say something about that part of the story?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do Divyadesa avatarams count as avatarams of Perumal?
Are you saying Divyadesa avatarams?
Ama.
Divyadesa avataram are, even though they are part of Perumal's avatarams, one can say, they are in the Archa form.
Yeah, there
right?
are. Yeah.
Archa Murti, Archa forms. So in that respect, it is an avataram because according to Vedas, once you have a deity of Perumal, whether it is Swayam Vyaktam or created by humans, once you perform Avahanam, Perumal comes into that form, whatever form that you have created, and you performed Avahanam, Perumal arrives in that Murti, correct? So at that point in time, Perumal is definitely there. Now, after the Aradhana and other things, we return Perumal to his original state, Para state. But in Divya Desams, he is always present in the Murtis. Many of the Divya Desams, Perumal Swayam Vyakta, Kshetram and Swayam Vyakta Murtis, Perumal is considered to be always present. So from that perspective, you're right, Divya Desa avatarams are also considered part of Perumal avatarams, but not the 40, unless that Divya Desam avataram is, in that Divya Desam, you have one of these 40 forms of Perumal. So for instance, the Hayagreeva. Where is Hayagreeva Perumal?
Is that a Dividesam?
Say that again.
I'm not sure. Like, is Srimushnam a Dividesam? Or Tiruvendrapuram?
Right, Tiruvaindipuram, correct, exactly. Srimushnam also Divya Desam, but Varaha Perumal. You are absolutely right. So,
sorry, that was
Perumal, Tiruvaindipurathula. In Tiruvaindipuram, Swami Desigan had this initiation. We will talk about that for the next 3 minutes. But that's where this particular Hayagreeva is that Yoga Hayagreeva Murti. So if a Divyadesam is having one of these forms, then definitely in both ways that Divyadesam Perumal is part of Avataram. If that Divyadesam has a different form, even then it can be considered as part of an Avataram, because once Perumal is consecrated, meaning Pratishtapanam Panyacha Abhina, then Perumal exists there in whatever form he is consecrated. Therefore, the answer is yes. Okay, now let's move to the next part of it. So after Perumal was able to take that avataram and then win over Madhu Kaitapa, he assumed the form of the Vellai Gudare, a horse. And then with this Shabdam alone, because he is protecting what? Vedas. Vedas are in the form of what? Shabdam, right?
Sound.
Sound, correct. So he took a form that is of Shabdam as Vellai Kudirai or horse, Parimukan, and then he with his sound or knee, the horse neighs, correct? So when the horse neighs, it produces the hala hala sound. That is what Swami Desikan has quoted in the Hayagreeva Stothram also. So with that, purely with just that sound, Perumal didn't have to do anything else. Madhu Kaitaba could not handle that, even though they went somewhere deep underground, beyond oceans and mountains and beyond universes and hid themselves. They could not bear the hala hala shabdam of Perumal in the form of beautiful white horse. And that shabdam alone reached them and troubled and tormented them. And then they came and fell at Perumal's feet, returning the stolen Vedas. And with that, Perumal then guided Brahma again to be very cautious and be respectful of his duties, because he should not assume and take things for granted just because in a very high position and be able to do what he was able to do and authorized to do. He should not take things for granted. And he was re-advised or given the opportunity again to perform the Shrishti Kainkaryam. So with that, Brahma received the information back. Now, how did Swami Desikan get the Hayagreeva Vigraham and all that is part of the second part, right? So who can tell me from who did he receive the Garuda Mantra Upadesham?
His Acharya.
His Acharya.
Right. Does
Appullar.
anyone know?
Appullar.
Yeah, Appullar, yeah.
Very good.
I
Correct.
mean, Apurva.
Right. So he received it from his maternal uncle Appullar, and he was able to, at the very young age, even though it is said by the time he actually wrote Sri Hayagreeva Stothram, that was probably around 20 years, according to some records. In some records, it is much earlier. But he received the Hayagreeva Mantra Upadesam, the Garuda Mantra Upadesam from his uncle, Sri Appullar, at a very early age, after most likely his Pancha Samskara. And then he, during a trip to Tiruvahindrapuram, this Divya Desam is near Kadalur, Hemabjavalli Sameda Shri Devanada Perumal. And in that location, there is a mountain, small hillock or mountain. Who can name that mountain?
Aushadagiri Mala.
Very good. You all know the story much better than I do. So in the Aushadagiri hillock or mountain, Swami Desikan found a very quiet and a serene, tranquil place. And immediately he remembered his uncle's Garuda Mantra Upadesam, and he started reciting the Garuda Mantra, Vainadeya, its mantra. And incidentally, Garudan is also associated with what? He is considered as what?
Perumal's Vahanam.
Perumal's Vahanam, one. The other one?
Vedam.
Vedam, yeah.
Exactly. Vedam, Veda Swarupi. So, Swami Desikan was reciting or meditating on Garuda Mantra. And at that time, Garudan, Sri Vainadeyan was very pleased, and he immediately appeared before Swami Desikan. And then he, Garuda Periyar Trivadi, initiated the Hayagreeva Mantra Upadesham to Swami Desikan right there in the Aushadagiri hills at Tiruvananthapuram. And he also presented Swami Desikan with the divine Murti or Vigraham of which Perumal?
Hayagreeva.
Right, Hayagreeva. So the Yoga Hayagreeva. So the divine Murti that Garudan presented to the Swami Desikan is the Yoga Hayagreeva Murti. That is still in Tiruvaindrapuram at the temple. And that is the Aradhana Murti along with Sri Varadar for Swami Desikan. So every day Swami Desikan would perform Aradhanam, that is his Aradhana Murti. And even today that is there. There is another Hayagreeva Murti, the Lakshmi Hayagreeva Murti. Who can tell me about that one?
Is that the one that Ramanuja got from Saraswati and then some family or relative gave it to Desikan?
Exactly. So Swami Ramanuja, Sri Bhagavad Ramanuja received that from Saraswati when he went to the north to create the Brahma Sutram and the Gita Sri Bhashyam. For his Sri Bhashyam, he had to consult with some documents, right? Some early form of earlier Brahma Sutras, and that was available only in Kashmir. And he went there. And at that time, after he received the Anugraham blessings of Saraswati, he received the Hayagreeva Praman. Now, in the Hayagreeva Stothram, we are also going to see how Swami Desikan captures a link to that by saying it is none other than Swami, Sri Hayagreeva Perumal, who had enabled even Saraswati Devi to have all the knowledge. Saraswati Devi is considered Brahma's wife. She is considered to be the source of knowledge by most people. But what many do not know, unless you happen to be a Sri Vaishnava, that even Saraswati Devi received all that knowledge from who? Sri Hayagreeva. So it is Hayagreeva who blessed Saraswati Devi with that knowledge, just like he blessed Brahma with that Upadesha. Correct? So that is how we get the other Hayagreeva Murti. That Murti also came to Swami Desikan's hands through Sri Bhagavad Ramanuja. After Sri Bhagavad Ramanuja's time, Swami Desikan received that Vigraham also. That one is Sri Lakshmi Hayagreeva Vigraham. And where is that Vigraham today?
Parakalamata.
Very good. That Vigraham is at Parakalamata. So through these two, we have this source to the stories, which happened so many ages ago. And then after that initiation of Sri Hayagreeva Mantram, Swami Desikan continued to meditate on Sri Hayagreevan. And then Sri Hayagreevan, Lakshmi Hayagreevan came in front of Swami Desikan and gave him his blessings. And right at that moment, Swami Desikan composed the Hayagreeva Stothram. That is the background for that. So he composed the Hayagreeva Stothram right then and there while having the Sakshatkaram or the divine experience of seeing Sri Lakshmi Hayagreeva right in front of his eyes. And then he immediately composed the Stothram. And that is how he came to create this wonderful piece of Sri Sukti for us. Among many of his Sri Suktis, it is said that there are two versions. In one version, they say he wrote other Sri Suktis even before this. But in another version, it says he started with this one. So either way, whether he actually put it with the pen to the paper or in those days, the Volachuvadi, it must have been in his heart and mind, all the different things that are captured in this Stotram. And so one can say that is always that the moment he received Sri Garuda Mantra Upadesam and meditated on Perumal Hayagreeva, he spontaneously came out with all the verses for this Hayagreeva Stotram. So let us go ahead and start looking at it. We may not be able to finish all the meanings, but we will try to capture as much as we can. Then we will go about the next class, additional stotrams. So, Shriman Venkatanathārya Kavitār Kikakesari Vedāntācārya Vadyo Me Sanidhattam Sadāhridi So one of you can read this if you want, the first slokam, or all of you
Can
can.
I read it?
Yes, all of you can read it together. That will be nice. First slokam.
Well, each of us will read a paragraph.
That will also work. Let's see. Go ahead and start with the first one. Are you all able to see the?
No,
You're on Vishuddha Vijnana.
it's just all blacked out.
Is it? Okay.
Your slide is showing the Vishuddha Vijnana kind of slogan.
Hang on.
No, it's just all blacked out for me. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Oh, now I can see it.
Can you see now?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead. All of you can recite the first one. You all know it by heart, the entire Stothram, right? Jnananandamayam devam
Nirmalasparikakritamagaram sarvavidyana Hayagreeva Pasmate
Asmahe Jnananandamayam
Mayam
devam
Devam Nirmalasparikakritam Adaram sarvavidyanam Hayagreeva Pasmate.
So what is being discussed in this stotram, in this shlokam actually, is Jnana Ananda Mayam Devam. So we all know Bhagavan is composed of 6 gunams, Kalyana gunams, right? Who can tell me all the 6 Kalyana gunams?
Jnana, Bala, Aishwarya, Virya, Shakti, Tejas.
Tejas.
Very good, very good, excellent. So the 6 gunams, Jnana, Bala, Aishwarya, Virya, Shakti, Tejas. That is what makes the Tirukalyana gunams of Perumal. 6 main Kalyana gunams. Out of that, so many other gunams also follow through, like Daya, Saushilyam, Saulabhyam, and so on. Those are Upa gunams that derive from the main 6 gunams. Of those, the first one is what? Jnanam. Jnanam is the foundation. It is the divine knowledge. Jnanam is not just simply knowledge. It is the divine knowledge. And that one is directly nothing but Vedam. Vedam is the divine knowledge. All the other knowledge that originate from it are also knowledge. But when it comes to Vedam, it is to be known as the divine knowledge. So here Swami Desikan brings that forth to the first word in the slokam. Jnana Anandamayam Devam. So Perumal, as Sri Hayagreeva, is of the form Jnana Anandamayam. So Jnanam is the foundational divine knowledge. Anandamayam is always pleasant and very happy, blissful, right? So that is captured here. Jnana Anandamayam Devam. Devam refers to the divinity, the Perumal himself. Nirmala Sphatikakritam. Nirmala here means blemishless, with no blemish or mistake that one can find.
Wait, does this line mean that his?
Yeah, go ahead. Say it.
Does this line have something to do with him being like radiant or blemish, or like
blemish free, blemishless, right? Blemish free is a better word there. So Nirmala Sphatikakritam, just like the Sphatikam crystal, this divine knowledge of Vedas and the source of that, Perumal himself, with the Anandamayam Devam, he is absolutely blemishless, Tirukalyana Gunam, nothing but divine gunams. Adaram Sarva Vidyanam. Adaram is the source or foundation. It simply means the very source and foundation for all the Vidyas. Who can tell me how many Vidyas we have? How many?
Vidya, we have knowledge.
There are, according to the Vedas, 32 Vidyas are there.
Vidya, yeah.
Right? Am I right? 32 or 64?
Vidya is knowledge, right?
Vidya is knowledge, but there are different forms of Vidya.
There
In
is like
broad
math
classification,
and
there is about 32 forms. So out of the main 32 Vidyas, you have 64 derived from it. Okay, so 32 times 2, they all branch into 2 ways, and you end up with 64.
one of them is math, right?
You can say that, yes. So one of them is all the scientific knowledge we have, but outside of that, there are at a broader level 32 Vidyas, and then when you further derive them, you end up with about 64. In Tamil, there is a saying, Ayakkalaigal 64, correct? Have you all heard about that? So
Yeah.
some of you have heard about it. 64 kala. But that has in one of those, you can say all our scientific knowledge that comes under as one vidya. So here the line is Adharam Sarva Vidyanam. So for all the vidyas, whether you take it regarded as 32 or 64 or subdivide into further, எல்லாத்துக்கும் for everything, Adharam, he is the Adharam. And who is he? He is Hayagreevam Upasmahe. Hayagreevam is the horse neck or horse faced Perumal. She Hayagreeva Perumal. She Lakshmi Hayagreeva, more specifically, right? And Upasmahe stands for I pray to you or surrender to you or I chant about you. So he is considered as the Adharam or foundation for all Vidyas. Now, why the Jnanam is considered as the foremost? Can any of you guess that?
Because Vedic knowledge is what's important.
Because Vedam is the most powerful
Yeah.
knowledge and mantram that'll get us.
Correct. So the Vedam is the foundational knowledge from which everything else springs forth. And for that Vedam, Perumal is the Adhar, right? What is the other way Vedam is known as? What is the source? How is it regarded? Vedam comes from where?
It comes from Perumal's Muchukate.
Right, the divine breath of Perumal. Vedams are considered to be the divine breath of Perumal. So, therefore, he is the Adharam for all the Vedams. That is exactly what is captured in that second line, Adharam Sarva Vidyanam. So, it is the divine breath of Perumal, and it is Apaurushayam. Apaurushayam meaning nobody wrote it, even though Veda Vyasa and before that possibly other Maharishis have attempted in some form to codify or group them. It was not created or written by any human being or divine being. It directly comes from Perumal's Muchukatru or Perumal's.
So whenever Perumal breathes, a new Vedam is probably formed.
Not, you cannot take it literally that way. You can say that it's all part of what he has already created, and it exists in his form, in his breath, meaning all the knowledge, there is nothing new, everything new, even something that is new, that we may understand as new.
Does Vedam keep going because Perumal keeps breathing, or does it like have an endpoint?
No, there is no, that is in one way you can understand it as there is no end. Vedam is so much expansious as this universe.
No, like will Perumal make more?
Maybe if he wills, yes. But
So if we learn Vedam today, isn't there like a certain set like Yajurvedam, Samvedam, Atharvedam, and Rigvedam?
Right, there are 4 Vedam right now are grouped under 4 categories: Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva.
Yeah, so like isn't there like a certain endpoint where like the Vedam?
So I'll tell you one small story for that. So once upon a time, I believe it is Sri Bharadwaja Rishi and one of his students, um, uh, and the Yajnavalkya was also involved in it, I think, if I remember correctly. So at the end of a particular session of Vedic class, one of the students said, okay, I am now going to study all the Vedams from the beginning to the end, and I'm going to finish everything. And to that, Bharadwaja Maharishi, I think, if I am not mistaken, if my memory serves right, he narrated an incident. He said, one can never ever complete or completely learn all the Vedas, no matter how many births one takes. And for that, he narrated his own incident, where he said he
Oh yeah,
attempted.
he took like 1,000 births and he never got it done.
Right. So he had to take so many births to get to a point where he thought he had uh, he had understood all the Vedas, and at one stage he felt very confident and comfortable that he has finished everything there is to learn, and there is nothing more. Then he went to meet with either Brahma or Narada, I think, and they had a discussion about what else is left. And at that time, um, Narada, I believe, showed that um, what he showed a huge mountain far away, most likely, let us say, Meru mountain, right?
Oh, and he said that all the Vedams you said is just like a bit of sand, like this much.
Right. He took one handful of the rocks or sand from that mountain and said, Shri Bharadwaja, this is all you have learnt in all your lifetime, uh, regardless of how many janmams or births you have taken, right? That's all you have done, learnt. Now, what you see there, the huge mountain, unsurmountable, unending mountain there, that is how much there is still, and everything beyond that also. Nobody knows. Nobody can even fathom or understand what is that limit. So it is limitless. There is no limit to it. Even today, when scientists are looking at the universe, right? At some point, they said, okay, universe is as a definitive boundary. There is a defined boundary for the universe, and one can start from one point, somehow measure and go to the other point, and most likely they say it is going to end some point, and then it will curve back so that it is just like our earth. It is round and it is measurable. That was one of the theories that was put forward for the universe. This was so many decades ago. And then now, with all the scientific advances and measurements that NASA sends satellites and telescopes and so on, right? They have come to understand, number one, universe is not a constant or fixed extent. It is ever expanding. Number two, there is all these black holes that devour all the stars, right? That there is no end to it. There are so many galaxies, and within that, so many black holes and so on. New stars are always forming and expanding. They realized, the more they studied it, they realized there is no end to this. Universe cannot be defined as one or two or
Where
three.
do the things go when the black hole is formed? Does it just
Yeah,
like
we are not going into that discussion here. I'm just giving you an example to say how that is very, even today's science and scientific advances, they are coming to the same understanding as that episode where Narada told Bharadwaja Rishi that it is limitless. That's the concept. So even today, the universe is ever expanding. Instead of one single universe, now science community and everybody has come to realize it is multiverse. So there are multiple universes, and within that multiple galaxies, within that multiple systems like our solar system, and within that millions and billions of planets. So there is no end, it is ever expanding. So that is all captured in this one simple line, right? Jnananandamaya devam nirmala sphatikakritam Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagreevam Upasmahe, and the related stories to it also prove that it is just such a vast thing. One can only enjoy what one learns. One can never complete it. Okay. With that said, we will move on to the second stotram here. Who can read the second one?
Me.
Okay, go ahead.
Swadi Sadam Sutta Spatikam. Wait.
Swatasiddham. You already know this. Don't worry about reading it from the screen. Just say what you know. Swatasiddham Shuddha Spatikramani.
Can I read the next one? I'll read the next one.
Okay.
I can read this one.
You all know the slokam. You can say it
I
from.
can read it if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Swatasiddham Shuddhaspatikam Bhubrit Pradibadam Shruda Shatri Chibidyuti Piravadada Tribhuvanam Anantastrayantair Anuvihita Hesha Halahalam Hada Shesha Vadyam Hayavadanam Idi Mahimaha.
Yes. So in this one, Swami Desikan is singing the praise, the Tejas, right? Perumal's divine Murti, the Hayagreeva Avataram, it's divine Tejas. So there are two references to the Tejas. One of the Gunams, right? Jnana Bala Aishwarya, Viryam, Shakti, and the last one. First one is Jnanam, the last one is Tejas, right? So that is the boundary between the Jnanam and Tejas. Everything is in between. So in this second stotram, Swami Desikan beautifully captures the second part, which is Swatasiddham Shuddha Spatikamani Bhuprit Pratibhatam Shudashadri Chibir Jyutipir Avadhada Tribhuvanam Anantaistrayantair Anuvida Hesha Halahalam Hatasesha Vadyam Hayavadana Midi Mahimaha. In this, he talks about the divine Tejas of Perumal as Hayagreevan, and what is he, why has he taken that form with the divine Tejas, is to protect all of us from the difficulties of the samsara. So this birth, in many ways, it is a separation from Perumal, right? So we are all, in some extent, in some ways, one can say, struggle the separation from Tayar and Perumal. And in the same way, he is linking it to the struggle of Sri Brahma. Brahma ended up in the struggle of separating from Vedas, correct? Because of his taking things for granted. He was separated from the divine knowledge, and he suffered the troubles, just as the Jivatmas, Baddha Jivatmas we say, meaning the Jivatmas who are tied to this living in this world. We all suffer from the separation of missing Perumal and Tayar and Perumal, and therefore it is similar to Brahma's suffering in some ways, the lack of divine knowledge. And then Perumal incarnated in a Tejomayam form, divine form, to protect and bring all the Vedas and the knowledge. Why does he have to do that? In order for all the Jivatmas to have a way to reach him. So he took that form, and with that sound, the halahalam, the horse neighs, that sound, he protected using the sound as the source. He protected the other sound, which is the divine Vedas. So he took the form of the horse that has that brilliant or most astounding sound to protect and recover the Vedas. Hesha halahalam, hata sesha vadhyam, hayavadanam. Hayavadanam, na? Beautiful.
Appa, my
Yes.
meeting is at 1%, so
Okay, don't worry, you can log in back afterwards. So let me finish this. So he took that form and then he protected it. And thereby he ensured that we all are protected also. That is what is captured in this stotra. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Who can recite this? Samahara Samna.
Can I recite it?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Samaharassamnam pratibhatamjam dhamairusham layaf pratyuhanam laharimithatir bodhajaladehe kathadarbhakshubhyak katakakola halabhavam haradvantadhvantam hayavatana hesha halahalaha.
Right. So in this shlokam, Swami Desikan brings out that the continuation of that halahala sound is nothing but the divine knowledge, the sounds that are housed in the four Vedas, the Rig Vedam, the Riks. The Riks are the mantrams, and the Yajur Vedam, and then the Sama Vedam, and the Atharvana Vedam, all the four Vedams. This sound is a divine combination of all the Vedic sounds. So Vedam being essence of sound, right? The rigs are all the mantras within that is used during the yajnams. So just as that is protected, they provide the true knowledge for our jivas or jivatmas to be protected by the divine knowledge. The divine knowledge being the knowledge about Tayar and Perumal and our special relationship with Tayar and Perumal. So for us as Jivatmas, most of the problems are because of what? Having forgotten who we truly are. We come to regard this body as the main thing instead of understanding that the Jiva, the Atma within the Jiva or the soul and the controller of that soul being Perumal. Perumal is the true source of everything, whether it is the Vedas or whether it is ourselves. It is indeed Perumal who controls and makes everything possible. But due to the samsara bandham or having born and taken a particular form, body, we forget about that and therefore think or sometimes in some cases assume we are just nothing but our form, the body, instead of the divine knowledge that is the source of that. And therefore engage in things that on the face of it looks like very happy things, but eventually it turns out to be a problem for us. So with that divine knowledge, we can get out of the samsara problems and reach Perumal, which is the true happy state for us. That is kind of captured in this shloka. So he brings the references to all the four Vedams and then how it is very critical as the divine sounds that will help us reach Perumal again. Okay, let's go to the next one. Mama, do we still have time?
Sure.
Okay, we will finish up to 5 slokams and then we will come back again in the next class. So who can read this slokam, Prachi Sandhya?
Aryan, can I read it?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Prachi Sandhya Kachidanta Nishayaha Prajna Drishte Randana Shrira Purva Vaktri Vedan Bhatame Vajivaktra Vagi Sakya Vasudevasya Murtihi.
Very good. So in this Stothram, Prachi Sandhya, Swami Desikan brings out how the Vak or the Vagi Shakya is the reference to the Vak. The Perumal is the Lord of the speech. So Vak Vanmai, or the ability to engage in the Tattvarthams or the philosophy. Please sit down, don't disturb. Okay, so Perumal gives the ability, he is the Lord of speech, and he is Vagishan. He is praised here as Vagishan. So he helps us to have the control, the Vak Vanmai, and whatever we need in the form of Jnanam. He is the one who makes all the knowledge possible. So that's captured in when he instructed the Brahma of the Vedas. And then just like Prata, in the Prata column, Prachi Sandhya is the reference to the Prata column, which when the sun comes out in the morning, it drives away the darkness. Here, Swami Desikan references to the driving away of the inner darkness in all of us. Inner darkness is what? Mistaking this world, the material world and the things around us to be Shashvatam or forever. Neither we are going to be forever, nor the material things we see around us are going to be forever. They are all a point in time. They are fleeting. They are not going to give us permanent happiness. So just like the morning sun drives away the darkness around all of us, Prachi Sandhya Kashidantar Nishayaha, the divine knowledge of Perumal will drive away all our ill knowledge. So the incorrect or poor or bad knowledge, that is what is regarded as Maya by other Sampradayams. Other Sampradayams say Maya. Maya is whatever we see around us appears differently, but they are all not real. That is how other Sampradayams say that. But in our Sampradayam, what we say, even though we mistakenly assume things, whatever we see is real. So this material world is real in one sense, it is there. But it is our misunderstanding that this material world is going to make us happy forever in this birth and the next birth and so on and so forth. That is where we get mistaken. So Prajna Drishter Anjana Shira Purva. In the Prajna, that in our mind, in our hearts and minds, we mistake that, and therefore we get into the confusion around ourselves, that whatever we see, we assume that it is always going to be with us, or we get too attached, whether it is to people or to material things. And that attachment further leads us to get into more and more attachment and trouble. Because the moment we get so attached to something, we don't want to let go. And when we cannot let go, what will happen? Ultimately, when the time comes to let go, we cannot bear that separation. Now, the reference here again is back to the Vagi Shakya Vasudevasya Murti, the Perumal. That Murti is what we should focus our mind on, because that is the original separation for us, not the intermediate or the things that we come into contact with during our births. That's why in our Sampradayam, we have the request for moksham. At the end of the lifetime, we say during Sharanagati, right? We do not want more and more births to continue in the same path, because we already know this. With each birth, what happens? We get attached to the material things, and therefore there is no end to it. No matter how much we attempt, we are powerless. By ourselves, we cannot stop that. So it is the Vagi Shakya Vasudevasya Murti, is the form of the Para Vasudevan Perumal, this Hayagreeva Perumal, Vagi Shakyan, Vagishan. He alone, through his work or Jnanam, can bring us out of the misery of the darkness of this world. And by surrendering to this beautiful Hayagreeva Murti Perumal, we can be very assured that there are no more births for us, and therefore no more confusion, and he will protect us definitely at the end of this birth. So it is that confidence, just as the morning sun, Prachi Sandhya, and the morning sun, it drives away the darkness and brings forth new light. In the same way, the Perumal Hayagreevan, worshipping Perumal Hayagreevan, will give us the jnanam and then ensure us we don't have to worry about the samsaram anymore. So that is brought forth in the fourth shloka. Now let's do the last one and stop with that because we are already running over time. So who can recite the fifth shloka here? Sorry.
विशुद्ध विज्ञान गण स्वरूपम विज्ञान विश्रान नपत्त दीक्षम दयानिधिं देहभृतां शरण्यं देवं हयग्रीवमहं प्रपद्ये.
Right. In this one, Vishuddha Vijnana Ghana Swarupam. So Vishuddha Vijnanam means, we already talked about how there are so many vidyas, right? One is the science. The simple meaning is Vijnanam. It is the opposite of Ajnanam, right? In that sense, Ajnanam means what? The attachment and mistaken knowledge about something. So in our philosophy, often there is one reference that is given. When we look at, let's say in the darkness, let us say there is a rope. When we look at the rope, say in a garden or on the road, we can immediately, we will get afraid. What do we think? Can somebody tell me? What do you think if you see a rope lying in darkness, but you just happen to see the outline of it? What will you immediately think of?
A snake.
Exactly. So we would assume immediately, oh, there must be a snake. So we would be very careful and cautious. We don't want to go. But the moment we switch on the light and see what it is, we would know immediately it is nothing but a piece of rope like that. So just like that, the ajnanam, what makes us think it is what makes us think a rope as a snake? It is the ajnanam, or incorrect knowledge. The rope is real, we are real, the world or everything around the rope is also very real. But why, when everything is real, we get the assumption or we get the understanding that it is a snake? Because the knowledge, our knowledge at that time is confused. We immediately, the moment we see the shape of that rope, we come to think of it as a snake because it matches with the snake, and our natural ability, flight or fear in us makes us think we have to be cautious. Therefore, we assume, oh, it must be a snake. And then, but when we slow down, take a minute and go to safety and switch on the light, then we come to understand it is not to be afraid of. It's just a piece of rope. Now, in the same way, when we take a pause and then think about the Jivatma and who controls that, we will know all our mistaken assumptions about this world, whatever we assume. It may not be really the truth. And the only truth is the pure knowledge. Here, Swami Desikan uses the Vijnanam in two lines. Vishuddha Vijnanam. Vishuddha Vijnanam is the complete Vijnanam. Vishuddha Vijnana Gana Swarupam Vijnana Vishranana Baddha Diksham. So it destroys the Ajnanam, the Divya Jnanam of Perumal will destroy the Ajnanam of Baddha Diksham. So we are attachment. This attachment causes us to engage in more and more problems and more attachment. So with the divine knowledge, it helps us get rid of that. Dhayanidhim Deha Brutam Sharanyam. Here Swami Desikan refers to Perumal as Dhayanidhim. Why? Because purely of his Daya. Because we commit so many apacharams, right? Knowingly, unknowingly, sometimes carelessly, in whatever way. But Perumal is a Dhayanidhi. So he can overlook all our apacharams. How? Two factors. we approach an Acharyan and say we are helpless and want to surrender to Perumal. Acharyan takes us to Perumal and then pleads to Tayar and Perumal to save us. And the next step, Tayar then, based on Acharya's recommendation, takes us to Perumal and says, the Dayanidhi, we have to help this poor soul and then make this soul get to us. So it is this Dayanidhi, this Hayagreeva Perumal, who then gives us the knowledge and then make sure we can reach him safely at the end of our lifetime. So here Swami Desikan also brings all that together by this one simple word, Dayanidhi. Dayanidhi, Deha Brutam Sharanyam. I also brings the surrender. Sharanyam is for our protection. We are surrendering to him. Devam Hayagreevam Aham Prapadye. So Devam Hayagreevam, it is to this Hayagreevan I surrender. In this case, the I is not only for Swami Desikan. He is using that I as an example for standing in place for all of us, all of the Jivatmas, and says, we all pray to you and then surrender to you so that you may give that knowledge to us so that we all will realize the truth. The truth is, it is Perumal that is the controller of everything, and it is only Perumal who is the Upayam and Upayam, being the means and also the source, and also the ultimate end point for all of us, for all the Jivatmas, to reach him and be happy forever, blissful forever. So that is what is captured in this simple 4 lines, beautiful shlokam again. So with this we will stop because we already overran the time. Adiyan will try to bring the remaining shlokams and the meanings in the next class. Thank you, Adiyan Dasa. We will recite the Taniyans of our Acharyan and then end this. Mama Adiyan Dasa. Sriranganath Shatakope, Indradishtam Lakshmi Nashima Sharzita Karneka Patram, Srirangavira Ragurachagoparityam, Vedanta Desikam Maham Pravatye, Srimat Ranga Shatari Samyamura, Aghamanta Dhim, Srimat Vira Ragut Vahatya Sharzita Padaravindashrim, Srimat Vedavatam Sadesigede, Karunyamichaspadam, Seve Rangadrina Sasnavasham, Narayanam Yoginam, Vedanta Desigati, the Katachalab, the Trayan, the Saramanavante Gurum Budagrem, Narayanati, Tituria Kripabhishaktam, Sri Ranganatha Etisekaramasya Shyamaha, Shrimate Shivan Shadagopashi, Vedanta Desigati, the Mahadesigaya Namaha, Shrimate Shri Lakshmi Nusum, Madhya Padaka, Sevaka Shivan Shadagopashi, Narayanati, the Mahadesigaya Namaha, Shrimate Shivan Shadagopashi, Ranganatha, the Mahadesigaya.